Okay, great. And then just so everybody knows, we will have you muted during this discussion, just so that we can hear our panelists really well, our presenters really well. If you do have any questions or if you want to have any discussion pieces, go ahead and put those in the chat. If you go to the bottom, you'll see the toolbar pop up there. You can also you could also change your name too if you want to do that, I believe, or you can include your organization. But we look forward to having a Q&A at the end here as well. But yeah, make sure to put any questions or discussions in the chat, and please remain muted. And this will be recorded, so if you have to leave early or anything like that, we'll make sure to send this out afterwards as well. But we can go ahead and get started here, Lenore, if you are ready.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Give me that sign up there, Amy.
I can hear you.
All right. So I am Lenore Bates. I'm the Colorado Byways Program Manager from the Colorado Department of Transportation. First, I want to say thank you to Northern Colorado Clean Cities for hosting this, in addition to all the byways and partners that will, of course, make this happen. That's great. I believe that byways link many of our interests here in Colorado, and it's very important to reach out and keep each other informed and collaborate. Next slide, please. Sorry, I'm on a little delay here. So first of all, our program has been established since 1989. It was established under ICE-T, which is Transportation Legislation Lingo, right? It's a nationally funded program that was nationally funded between 1989 and 2012. So it has been unfunded for quite some time. It could possibly be refunded at the end of this year through the Invest in America Act. So if you want to follow information on that, please follow Scenic America or the National Scenic Byway Foundation for more information. Furthermore, the Colorado Byway Symposium was scheduled this year in May, but it has been moved to May 5th and 6th in 2021 in Ouray, Colorado. We hope to see you there. Next slide. So we know that each byway functions independently. They are across the entire state. However, the roadway is the ribbon that connects them, and it creates a positive experience for travelers, an economic benefit to the state, and our blue Columbine sign provides the way showing for our visitors to wayfind. We have 26 designated byways in Colorado, of which of them are nationally designated as America's byways. Out of those 11, actually 2 are all-American roads, which those include San Juan Skyway and Trail Ridge Road, which are destinations unto themselves. We also have 10 U.S. Forest Service byways and 2 BLM backcountry byways. These byways are overseen by a governor-appointed 15-member commission. The commission represents many agencies, including public lands, conservation, preservation, state agencies, and our byways. Next slide. So first of all, with this photo, I want to ask if you recognize this place, this scenic view, or this byway. Feel free to put that in the chat. We'll see who's accurate. In addition to the Colorado Byways Commission, they have a strategic plan. The commissioners work with partner agencies to address transportation planning and delivery, economic vitality, tourism, recreation, arts, culture, historic preservation, conservation. This plan is located on the CDOT website under the resources of the byways. It's also located, the vanity URL for Colorado Byways is coloradobyways.org. Next slide, please. So in 2013, Clarion Associates helped complete the Benefits of Colorado Scenic Historic Byways report. Within this report, we were able to have 3 case studies completed. Gold Belt Tour provided information on heritage preservation and conservation. Top of the Rockies talked about the 1859 Hayden Ranch, its preservation and recreation plan, and Unaweep Tabawatch touched base on preservation and interpretation on the Hanging Flume and the Driggs Mansion. It also talked about, called up important information about data collection and reporting, which resulted in a 2016 data analysis report. The most important thing for the electric vehicles is this third category here, enhancing. And this is a great opportunity regarding our electric vehicle opportunity that we have here now. Next slide, please. So the motivation and shift towards scenic drives has been on the increase for 5 years. Taking scenic drives is the second highest trip motivator for summer Colorado trips. It's second only to visiting a state or national park. And this was information from 2017, okay? The reasons for taking a trip have always been, right? To make stops along the way, ability to pack everything in your car you want, the kitchen sink, right? Exploration, relationships, self-discovery, and of course, bringing your family together. Next slide, please. To ensure that each local byway is a fully functioning part of an excellent statewide system, we have a guidance for byways to follow so they have greater accountability in planning their work, tracking their progress, measuring benefits and results, and even developing a written succession plan. This ties back to the goal number 3 of ensuring that each local byway is a fully functioning part of an excellent system. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to briefly cover is our toolkit. We have an outstanding Electric Byways toolkit. It's been a collaboration between state agencies in order to promote sustainable travel across our state. This is located under this website here that's posted on the slide, and I'm sure will be shared later, and maybe somebody can add it in the chat too. But also remember, you can go to colorado.com, which is the tourism office's web page. And at the very bottom, you'll find a link to industry partners. So you can find it there. Next slide. So I want to highlight this photo. It's Nederland Visitor Center. It's along Peak to Peak. And what's nice about many of these along Peak to Peak is they've asked to use renewable energy to actually provide energy to these charging stations. An electric vehicle friendly byway will guarantee that an EV driver can make the journey along the way without worry about running out of a charge. Unlike fueling a conventional vehicle, of course, these charging stations are not located only at gas stations, but they can be located anywhere on a byway that the tourist wants to stop or that you want to encourage a tourist to stop, such as hotels located near businesses and downtown centers where they can shop and dine, right? So it's a perfect opportunity. Next slide, please. So I have a screenshot here of just one of many trip planning websites that allow for electric vehicles to seek out their planning, right? So this one is MyThink Drives. It's been around for quite some time, and we've had a partnership. You could just click on different things, hiking, biking, but one is charging stations. In the near future, itineraries, press releases, and social media will be developed to promote these electric vehicle-friendly byways. And we will be working closely with the Colorado Tourism Office and Andrew, who I believe might be on the call, to support this. Next slide. So under the toolkit, we have several agencies. One is the Colorado Energy Office. And under this toolkit and this section, it provides information about the statewide plan. So I suggest you take a look at that. Also about the Charge Ahead grants, and I'm not going to cover too much because we will have Addison on the call to cover this. And then also by working with Colorado communities, the Recharge coaches will help create the system of broad support and resources necessary to transition to the electric vehicles. Next slide. Okay, here is another local photo. This is again along Peak to Peak. It was the first user of the charging station in Allen's Park at the gallery. It's a community hub. CDOT is the next section in the toolkit. We can also reach out and talk to you about this, but we could provide highway signage for eligible fast charging locations, but there is criteria for that. And as mentioned before, the Colorado Byways have plans that include EV charging, and they target EV owners for tourism. Next slide. Again, another photo. This one is in Lake City along the Ice Park. It's located along the Silver Thread Scenic and Historic Byway and also the Alpine Loop Backcountry Byway. And it is a brand new installed charging station, so that's awesome. DOLA supports electric vehicle friendly byways, and also the Main Street communities provide access to these and also funding towards these. The Main Street community may use their mini grants and also provide the planning. For energy and mineral impact assistance, communities have to contact their regional manager. Next slide, please. Great, I am going to turn it back over. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lenore. So we had one guess for that picture that you showed everyone. Someone said Cache Laputer North Park.
Yes, so this one's taken in Walden, and of course it looks like North Park, right? Both with the history and the moose and the mountains.
And then Lenore, we have one or two questions if you don't mind answering them. Christy Crosser asked, are there printed maps available of all of the byways?
Yes, there is. So you can go to coloradobyways.org or go to CDOT and go to the travel section for Scenic Byways. And there is an online request form that you can request a map. And for people who need bulk items, it's on that same request form. So.
Great, thank you. I know there are a few more questions in the Q&A section, but I think we'll get to the rest of them once all the presenters are finished. So, thanks.
Great.
Thanks, Drea. Great. So, perfect. And for those who don't know yet, my name is Amy Maxey, and I am a co-coordinator with Northern Colorado Clean Cities. And I am going to discuss Federal Highway Administration corridor development and give you all a brief overview of EV 101. But first, we do have a poll question to kind of see, you know, who do we have in the audience today? And now hopefully we've got everyone here. We can pull that up. All right, so what industry is your organization? Where are you working from? Give you a few minutes to answer that. Oh, perfect. And we have some people discussing it in the chat too. That's great. Good chance to do a little networking here too. So yeah, if you hit other, go ahead and put your industry in the chat. All right. How many results we got, Drea? We ready to?
Looks like we need 7 more, but maybe we can, looks like it's slowing down a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see who we have.
Okay. Looks like majority government and planning agencies, followed closely by nonprofit industries. So we've got a good mix today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for being here, y'all. And like I said, let's dive into some Federal Highway Administration corridor development as well as EV Charging 101. A little bit of background though. So the FAST Act really helped speed this along here. It was signed in 2015, And FAST stands for Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act. And it really sets the course for transportation investments through these highways to improve mobility along the highways, create jobs, support economic growth, and accelerate project delivery and promote innovation along these highways. Within the FAST Act, Section 1413 really highlights the alternative fuel corridor development in which EV charging falls under. And since the FAST Act has been signed, the Federal Highway Administration designates the corridors annually, and in doing so really establishes a national network of EV charging infrastructure along these highways that you can see on the right. Colorado, we are really focused on developing convenient and sustainable alternative fuels markets that provide flexible statewide travel, but also provides meaningful connections to our neighboring states and the broader national transportation network. So you can see we have different tiers here. So tier 1 would be like an I-25, I-70, those really high use highways that do connect to the neighboring states. And there are many different benefits. So different benefits include, well, first of all, the acceleration of the adoption of EV vehicles. And this is due to addressing the #1 biggest barrier that folks have to adopting them, which is range anxiety. If we know that we can travel through different states along the scenic byways in our EV vehicle, we're more likely to purchase one. It also really helps with the social norming aspect of, you know, owning an EV. If you're seeing EV charging corridors and you're seeing folks charging their EVs out like at a plaza or at a hotel, you will feel yourself more able to, you know, you look at that and be like, I could probably do that too. It's a little less abstract when you see it in person. It also really will promote sustainable travel and increase tourism in these areas because it does increase inner city, regional, and national travel accessibility with alternative fuels. Not only that, there's a lot of multi-state and regional cooperation and collaboration through this, like the Core West program. And ultimately, it will lead to a decrease in greenhouse gas emissions and lead to better air quality, among a lot of the other environmental benefits. Okay, so let's say that you have a retail center or a hotel and you are going to be installing an EVSE in your area. What would you need for that to become a part of the corridor nominated by the Federal Highway Administration? Well, they must be public stations. They can't just be private for you and your coworkers. And they cannot be the Tesla charging station just because this is all about accessibility. And Tesla users can still use the other public charging stations. They just need to have an adapter. These stations also must be 5 miles from the highway so that people, while they're traveling, can hop off the highway easily, find a charging station, maybe grab a bite to eat, and then get back in their vehicles and continue with their travel. They also must be DC fast charging and include CHAdeMO and combo ports, which if that's confusing to you, don't worry, I will cover that in the next few slides. They also have to be 50 miles between the nearest EV charging stations. So in order for it to be qualified as a corridor, you need EV charging stations every 50 miles. And again, this is because of accessibility, so that all EV owners will have the ability to travel through these corridors, even if they have maybe a lower ranged vehicle. And then finally, of course, we need signage. So I've said EVSE a couple times. What is that? For those of you who don't know, that stands for Electric Vehicle Supply Equipment, but essentially it's the infrastructure needed to get all the, to deliver the electrical energy from the electricity source or the grid to your plug-in electric vehicle battery. So it's basically a fueling station for electricity. And now I mentioned DC fast. So DC fast charging is what the Federal Highway Administration needs in order to have these corridors be designated as an EV charging corridor. And that is because if you look at the charging time, that fourth column there, you can get 60 to 80 miles of range in just 20 minutes. So again, this is all about accessibility. If we are able to stop, charge up our vehicle, and get to our next destination, we want it to be done in the best, like most timely manner. So that's why DC Fast is needed for those. And I did mention the CHAdeMO and combo ports. So those are highlighted in the yellow below. And again, it's about accessibility. So those two will, offering those two will cover the biggest range of EV owners' vehicles without them needing any extra adapters. So that's why those two are now required. So now that you know a little bit about EV 101 or EVSE 101, I want to do another quick poll here. And I would also like to say that if you have any questions, I know that was a very broad overview. Feel free to reach out to us at any time. We host one-on-one sessions too, and we can do a deeper dive as well if you have questions. But let's see here. So another poll, what do you think is the biggest benefit to offering a public EV charging station? We have a few options here, and of course, if you think it's something other than that, go ahead and type it in the chat. We'd love to see your discussions. But some of the options here is increased business, positive public perception, environmental benefits, and industry influence. Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to, showcase your hotel or your plaza as being ahead of the curve? Give you all a couple seconds. Oh, and I do see a quick question. It says 5 miles from the highway. Yes, so within 5 miles, like off of the highway for those EVSE charging stations. That way people can get in and out. So 5 miles maximum away from the exit of the highway, yeah.
Make sure you get your answers in. Looks like we're slowing down a little bit, but there's a few more people who need to answer. Maybe we can just end it here. We got like 73% of people answering. So interesting, it looks like environmental benefits is taking the lead along with positive public perception. So
can you share that for some reason?
Sorry.
Oh, perfect. Oh yeah, 41% environmental benefits. Well, that's good. And I do like, people are like increased business too, because that's another good benefit of bringing people in.
And that goes hand in hand with positive public perception. So
yeah,
guys are right on track.
Perfect. So let's say you have installed your EVSE. What happens next? There are a few awesome tools that you can use from the Alternative Fuels Data Center. This one we're highlighting is the station locator tool. So we can help you input your station into this tool. As you can see, this person was traveling to Colorado Mountain College. And maybe they were headed there, but either way, if they weren't, it's really awesome that you will have your business highlighted in ways and to people that might not have traveled to your business otherwise. So that's one good benefit. Think of that kind of like the MapQuest of EV vehicles charging stations, and there's different apps too. When it comes to designating the corridors, you can go to, or if you're just curious to see, what are the corridors like in Colorado, if you go to afdc.energy.gov/corridors, and then if you click this EV charging station that is highlighted in red, you will find that this is what we are looking like right now. So we actually have done pretty well. I-25 is almost completely corridor ready. We just need a little bit of help up at the north end, but you can really see where we're lacking too. So if we reach out to these communities on the east side and really help them get the funding that they need maybe to install these stations, we'll be able to ensure that EV owners can really travel successfully across these highways and into those areas. So right now there might be a barrier, let's say somebody in Denver wanted to travel up northeast, they wouldn't be able to. But that brings me to my last point, which is that we can help you. We offer free one-on-one advising sessions on charging infrastructure, other alternative fuels, signage, what steps you'll need. funding opportunities as well. We want to hear from you. Even if you just have some questions, feel free to reach out at any time. There's no commitment or anything like that. But yeah, we'd love to work with you, and we're excited to also hear from Estes Park and Aspen, some of their success stories. But next we're going to turn it over to Addison to hear a little bit about funding. But thank you guys.
Amy, there's one question really quick that I think we might want to address. And it's about the requirements for the fast charging stations. And it's asking, it doesn't make sense that the requirements for the fast chargers include lots of amenities like shopping and dining when these fast chargers take so little time to charge. So essentially, why does it need to be a fast charger and also have amenities? If it's charging so quickly, will people really stop at the amenities?
That's a great question, and it doesn't necessarily require amenities. I mean, you could have along the federal highway or along these highways, you could have it at a rest stop or a different area. But in my mind, I don't have like a concrete answer to that. But I would say, even if I had 20 minutes to wait, I'd rather like go in somewhere, or 20 minutes to get to 60 to 80 miles. But a lot of EVs also have higher ranges than that as well. So it could take a little bit longer depending on your EV. So I think just having that available is always just an added benefit, but it's not a requirement. I hope that helps.
Great, thank you. Addison.
Yep, thanks Amy and Drea. So my name is Addison Phillips. I'm the program manager at the Colorado Energy Office for the Charge Ahead Colorado grant program and also the Recharge Colorado EV coaching program. I'll talk about both of those. I'll talk about Charge Ahead Colorado first. So Charge Ahead is the grant program that was mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. The program funds 80% of the costs for the installation of both level 2 and level 3 charging stations. The program objectives, as you see in front of you, are to promote the installation of EV chargers across Colorado, to increase the number of specifically light-duty electric vehicles purchased in Colorado, to reduce pollution, to gather data, and to support the Colorado Electric Vehicle Plan, the kind of headlining goal of which is to have 940,000 EVs on the state's roads by 2030. Next slide, please. Thank you. So a bit about the history of the program. So the program has been around since 2013. There were only 50 charging stations in the state at that point. We've now awarded, actually it's now over 1,000 stations with the most recent application round. Until very recently, the vast majority of these stations were the level 2 chargers, the destination, the 220 volt chargers, but there was a growing demand for level 3 chargers seen, especially in the last year or so of the grant. And there's also a bureaucratic divide to be aware of in terms of the grant administration. So the Regional Air Quality Council manages all of the grants in the Denver metro area, and then CEO or I manage all the grants outside of the 7-county Denver metro area. So while I'm aware of all of the awards that take place, I'm more of an expert on the areas outside of Denver metro, and hence my focus on the Electric Byways effort. Next slide, please. The last slide had a snapshot from the Alternative Fuels Data Center of all the chargers in Colorado, and this is a map of all the chargers specifically that were funded by Charge Ahead. So you have this statewide map on the left, and then a zoom in on the Denver metro area. So as you can see, we have substantial coverage, but there are certainly still gaps. And in some ways, these maps can be deceptive because they don't easily distinguish between level 2 and level 3 chargers. And the difference between them in terms of the ability to travel around with ease in an EV is substantial. So just a snapshot there. So next slide. Okay, so I formatted this chart, I think, for a 16:9 slide, and it got shrunk down, so it's kind of hard to read, I think, with the size of the text. But if you Google for Charge Ahead Colorado, the Clean Air Fleet's website is where this chart is housed, and it is the kind of the best single snapshot of the grant requirements and what the various incentive levels are. There currently are 4 different incentive levels that you can see in the 4th row down. So we fund fleet-only level 2 chargers at 80% or a max of $6,000. We fund general level 2 chargers, so ones that are more open to the public and not just fleet specific, for a max of $9,000. And then we have 2 different funding levels for level 3 fast charging stations. So we provide a max $30,000 grant for chargers that are a minimum of 50 kilowatts of power. And then we provide a limited grant, as in only 1 award per application round, for $50,000 for chargers that are at least 100 kilowatts. Any entity in Colorado is eligible to apply, so businesses, local governments, school districts, nonprofits, etc. And we are prioritizing apartment complexes, workplaces, and of course tourist locations, rural corridors, and scenic byways. So a bit of a kind of a deep dive here on the hardware requirements. So we don't, I'm frequently asked if we require any particular vendors or manufacturers. We do not. We have a list. We try to have as an exhaustive a list of possible of current vendors who sell electric vehicle charging station equipment. But in terms of requirements, we just have very schematic, very general requirements. So one is that all the stations have to be smart or networked. This is for 2 main reasons. One is because we require data collection. So individuals who are awarded have to report station utilization data for 5 years from station activation. And then 2, it enables EV drivers to check from a smartphone app what the status of the station is. Is it operational? Is it currently in use? That kind of thing. We also, sorry, back 1 slide. Yep, thanks. So we also only award dual port stations. Alternatively, you can be awarded for 2 single port stations, but they would just be treated as a single port, or sorry, as a single station. So you'd be eligible, for example, for $9,000 for either a single dual port station or for 2 single port stations. All of the level 3 stations have to be CCS or combo, as Amy called it, and CHAdeMO. So they have to have both of those plugs on there, which is it's a standard. It's pretty much industry standard, but we do require that. And then all level 3 chargers have to be a minimum of 50 kilowatts of power. Next slide. So the whenever you're applying for a level 3 charging station, we do require a bit more information from the grantee to demonstrate kind of more working understanding of what it takes to successfully install and operate one of these stations. They are somewhat more complex of a project, both in terms of installation and in terms of operation, compared to a level 2 station. So first of all, we are prioritizing level 3 chargers because of the fact that level 2 has been dominant in the past, and because level 3 provides a significant gap filling service in a way that level 2 does not. We have awarded level 3s to a variety of municipalities, to convenience store locations such as Come and Go, Feather Petroleum, and Grand Junction, for example. And then whenever you do apply for one of these stations, it's important to both speak to and document your conversations with your local utility to be sure that you understand how much power is available in the area that you're planning to install the station, whether or not significant infrastructure upgrades will be required, and also what the demand charge rates are like. I won't go into what demand charges are, but it's a thing you should definitely research with your utility before applying for a level 3 station. And So yeah, those are the main considerations. And something else to note is a frequent question that I get is, so the incentive for level 3 is 80% or a maximum of 35,000. I think I said 30 earlier. We just raised it to 35. So I correct myself from earlier. It's 35,000 maximum for a level 3 50 kilowatt station. But to be aware, the instances where there is not significant power accessible, like where you need to drop a new transformer or do other significant electrical upgrades, can significantly increase the cost of the project to the extent where the 35,000 may only cover 40 or 50% of project costs. So it's very important to do your due diligence before embarking on a project like this, to just to ensure that you understand the full costs that are implied and just the power that's available. So, next slide. So just a brief overview of what the process is like on the energy office's end for the grant process. So we have 3 rolling application windows per year. So you can only apply during one of these 3. They're each roughly 1-month windows. So we have an application round that runs generally from January 15th to February 15th, and then again from May 15th to June 15th, and then another one for the entire month of October. Usually takes us roughly a month to evaluate the applications. You'll then receive an award decision. You'll then attend an awardee webinar. There's then the contracting process. Then you install the station, and then you are reimbursed for all eligible costs after the station is complete and we receive all final reporting documents. So 2 important things to note here is we cannot reimburse any costs that are incurred outside of the purchase order date. So you should not begin your project until you receive an active purchase order from the Energy Office. And then any costs incurred after that purchase order expires, we also cannot reimburse. Just to be aware. And we also don't fund stations retroactively. So you shouldn't install a station and then apply for the grant. We would not be able to refund that. You should apply with a project proposal, and then when it's approved, and then whenever you receive a purchase order from our office, then we can reimburse the costs that you incur during those purchase order valid dates. Next slide. Okay, so that's it for Charge Ahead overview. I'll just do now a brief overview of the Recharge Colorado program. So again, the Recharge Colorado coaches, there are 5 coaches across the state, and they provide EV coaching or consulting services to any consumer or organization across the state. They provide consulting on the Charge Ahead grants. They provide outreach events to educate the public on EV operation and charging best practices, those kinds of things. And then also organize power purchase or group buy events to consolidate and negotiate discounts for consumers to purchase electric vehicles. The slide here, so currently we are the Recharge coaches are not under contract. We've currently gone out to bid, but they should, 5 coaches should be back under contract by the beginning of August at the very latest. But these territories are the general territories that the Recharge coaches serve. There's 1 coach per each of these territories. Next slide. So this program was for many years called Refuel Colorado. So it's possible you've heard of Refuel Colorado. In the last fiscal year, we changed or rebranded the name to Recharge, and this reflects the governor's focus on deep emissions reductions. So we're focusing specifically on electric vehicles and no longer on other alternative fuels. And this is because of the governor's goal of reaching 100% renewables by 2040. So it's critical to have vehicles that are powered by renewable energy as well as a grid powered by it. So hence the focus now on electric vehicles specifically. And the recharge coaches are focused exclusively on light-duty electric vehicles, so they're not under contract to provide assistance or consultation on medium or heavy-duty vehicles currently. Next slide. So it's a snapshot here of, as I referred to earlier, the electric vehicle plan has the goal of 940,000 electric vehicles on state roads by 2030, and so the purpose of the recharge coaches is to help us meet that goal. So currently, there are actually this chart on the left is a couple months out of date, but there are currently around 29,000 electric vehicles on Colorado's state roads. You can find, so the image on the left is a screenshot from a new EV sales dashboard that we have hosted on the Energy Office website. So if you're ever curious about the number or distribution or type of electric vehicles across the state, this data is updated monthly. So you can consult that at your convenience. So the recharge coaches are there to help us move this number from 29,000 in 2020 up to 940,000 in 2030. Next slide. Again, it's just kind of having it written out here explicitly. The recharge coaches' two main objectives are to educate consumers and anyone else about the benefits and costs and incentives associated with light-duty electric vehicles, and then also to provide consultation and grant writing assistance and outreach regarding the Charge Ahead Colorado grant program. Next slide. And their 5 deliverable areas, again, are power purchase or group buy events, ride and drive test drive events. So classically, ride and drive events have been some of the best ways of introducing new individuals to electric vehicles, because just feeling how an electric vehicle feels to drive, feeling the fun, acceleration, seeing that it's not that different from a regular car, that has been critical for driving adoption and breaking down educational barriers. Obviously, in pandemic times, it's a bit more difficult. So coaches have been experimenting with virtual ride and drives in the recent past, but hopefully they can move back to doing in-person ride and drives at some point in the near future when there's a vaccine. They also host educational electric vehicle workshops or webinars, kind of like the one we're currently on. And also just, again, Charge Ahead Colorado application advice, and then provide general EV coaching services, answering questions, those kinds of things. Cool, that's all that I have. So feel free, thank you, Amy, for posting the link to the Clean Air Fleets website. You can find all the information that you need in that link that Amy put in the chat. And it provides, there's a Word formatted application, so you can actually fill that application out at any point during the year, but you can't actually submit it until one of the application windows opens. There's a best practices document there. There's the vendor list there. There's also a state price agreement there. If you are a governmental entity or a 501c3 nonprofit, we have pre-negotiated prices for electric vehicle charging equipment that you can access there. So it's a great resource to refer to, but also happy to answer any questions that you have at the end.
Thank you so much. Okay. There was one that I saw that was really interesting, actually, Addison. Cheryl says, California and Nevada has a network of solar-powered supercharging stations. Has Colorado looked into implementing similar options?
So I don't know, is the emphasis on the solar-powered part or on the supercharging part? So there, I can answer part of the question at least. So the so the Energy Office currently is under contract with ChargePoint. We had a competitive process whereby we selected the company ChargePoint. They were awarded $10.3 million to build out a statewide network of fast charging stations. There is more information about this on the Energy Office website. The plan was to have all stations active by this summer. There are 34 stations that are spaced strategically along all of the main transportation corridors across the state. Due to COVID, things are delayed. We should have 2 to 3 of them online within the next 1 to 2 months, and then the remainder of them should be online by the end of the calendar year. But that will provide, that's really the infrastructure backbone for driving an electric vehicle around the state. In terms of solar power, currently it's generally much more cost effective to have a solar deployed at grid scale or at utility scale. So the amount of renewables that are being fed into the chargers is going to vary by utility territory and how much energy they currently generate on site or purchase from their power provider. So this kind of goes along with the governor's goal. So the governor's goal is to reach 100% renewables by 2040. And so as we get closer and closer to that goal, all of these supercharger stations or fast charger stations will be more and more renewable powered as we progress.
Yeah, that was a great way to cover that. Thank you. And then let's go ahead and move it on over to Estes Park. Vanessa.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Drea, and thank you to NC3 for the invitation to join the panel today. I've learned a lot, and I just appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're doing at the town of Estes Park. My name is Vanessa Solesbee, and I am the Parking and Transit Manager with the town. I've been with the town since 2018, and since then I've had a really fast education on EVs and have had the opportunity to work on some pretty exciting and groundbreaking projects over the past nearly 2 years. So next slide, please. A little bit about Estes Park, for those of you who haven't visited our beautiful community. We have about 6,000 full-time residents, but each summer during our main tourism season, we can swell to 4.5, 4.6 million visitors in a small amount of time. So we do have a lot of folks that come up to visit Rocky Mountain National Park. We also have a lot of folks come up to camp and hike and just enjoy everything the town has to offer. And despite our small size, the town has a truly professional staff and has a strong commitment to excellence in operations and in planning. You'll see on the slide a number of very recent planning efforts that have been championed by the Public Works Department in partnership with our Citizen Transportation Advisory Board. That group is extremely active and helps support town staff and helps engage local stakeholders as well in our planning efforts as we look to not only improve our multimodal transportation options, our community layout, but also look to the future and how we can protect our environment and be good stewards of the resources that we have. And so as a staff person at the town, I'm very grateful to have not only professional colleagues, one of which who is on the call today, Christy Crosser, our grant specialist. I've never worked with anybody with such an amazing talent, and the town is so glad and grateful to have her, because I think a lot of the work we've been able to do in the grants that I'll be talking about have really come about due to Christy's passion and involvement in the area of EVs and sustainability. So just wanted to give Christy a little bit of a shout out there. In terms of our journey to EV readiness and our electrification of our fleet journey, in 2018, the town installed 2 level 2 chargers thanks to the Charge Ahead Colorado program. And we also replaced 2 outdated charging stations for a total of 4 level 2 chargers. And thankfully, we are also currently participants in the Colorado Energy Office's Alt Fuels Colorado program. And we will be part of the group that was just mentioned by Addison. We are working with ChargePoint to install 4 DC level 3 fast charging stations in our visitor center parking lot, which is perfectly located at the intersection of 3 main highways. We've got US 34, US 36, and then Highway 7, so peak to peak, all converging, where we will have now 6 total charging stations, 4 of which will be the level 3 fast charging stations. So we're really excited about that project, which hopefully, if not starting imminently, will be starting and completed, wrapped up before the end of this calendar year. So another exciting project on that front. Next slide, please. In my neck of the woods, in the Parking and Transit Division, we've been really focused on 2 grants that were written, again, with Christy's help and our former program transit manager, Brian Wells. They put together 2 FTA grant applications that were successful in 2017 and 2018. Both grants were for fully electric trolley buses. One was a replacement of our existing gas-powered trolley, and the second one was to add a second vehicle to our fleet, second electric vehicle to our fleet that would bring our total transit fleet to 40% fully electric with the receipt of the second vehicle next year. And we did just receive our first trolley just mere days ago. So we are getting to know that vehicle and have put it into service. I can tell you it's not only it's a beautiful vehicle, but it's quiet. The rider experience is greatly improved. And also because of our traffic congestion, even this summer with decreased visitation because of COVID, a lot of times our trolley is sitting downtown, idling in traffic, and it is so nice not to have that to worry about, the fumes to worry about with that new electric vehicle. We worked with 2 vendors on that, Hometown Trolley and Motive Power Systems, and we will be going out to competitive RFP next month to procure the second vehicle, which we hope to receive in summer 2021. Next slide, please. So here are some pictures of our new vehicle, our new electric trolley, along with a picture of our ribbon cutting ceremony on July 1. We've got the mayor was there to share some of the hopes and goals and anticipated return on investment for that vehicle. So I wanted to share some photos with you all as well. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I think we do really well as a town is identify and track data that we want to capture, especially related to return on investment as significant as was put into purchasing the new trolley. And so, you know, typically with our gas-powered trolley, we were looking at around 4,000 gallons of fuel over the summer that we will no longer have to purchase and or contribute to the environment. We have identified at least 16 different pollutants that we will be reducing and or eliminating based on that vehicle's transition to an electric vehicle. So there's the environmental impact, the economic impact of saving that much fuel. We were spending thousands of dollars in gasoline for that trolley each summer. And I am anxiously tracking our current use of power use to charge the vehicle now that it's arrived, and I anticipate that we'll probably spend less than $1,000 in electricity over the summer. So it's going to be a big economic impact for a town as small as ours as well. And then also the experiential component too. With a clean vehicle, it's a quieter ride. It really improves not only the experience if you're on the bus, being able to talk to, you know, those next to you, but also those, again, waiting on the sidewalk. So we are going to be tracking data for the vehicle in those 3 different areas. And as we look to the future and look more comprehensively about how we are integrating EVs into our community, one of the things that we are very excited to begin embarking on, as we have, you know, we integrated the level 2 chargers, we're excited to get the level 3 chargers. Now we have a new electric vehicle with its own charging system. And we have a number of visitors increasing every day that are bringing EVs into our community, either to stay or on their way to somewhere else. We are going to be working with the consulting team this summer to put together a comprehensive EV readiness plan. Now that we've got a lot going on, we want to get our ducks in a row and make sure that we understand, you know, from a more holistic way, what we have currently, what we'd like to have in the future, and how we can achieve our goals of being, you know, really great environmental stewards of our resources. So that project just kicked off, and it's we are grateful to have a grant to fund that through DOLA, the Department of Local Affairs, and we are going to be looking at not only our entire town fleet, so which of our additional town vehicles, you know, whether it's a police cruiser trailer or one of our smaller parks vehicles, or additional, transit and or parking vehicles. We look to transition our parking enforcement vehicle to an EV as well. So looking at our fleet, which is really large for a town of our size, looking at fleet transition to EVs and being really methodical and thoughtful about that. We're going to be looking at how our guests, those that are traveling to the town for tourism, how they're using our existing EV stations, how we can market ourselves as a location that's very friendly to those with EVs. So looking at that tourism component, and then also looking at our local residents as well. We have a very active EV community here, lots of very well-connected and networked Tesla users, as well as users of other electric vehicles. And then again, our Transportation Advisory Board, getting them to help us be real champions for EV adoption in the community. And those 4 different stakeholder groups are really going to participate in the creation of this plan so we can move our community forward in a way that's not only taking advantage of some of these great grant opportunities, but doing so in, again, a holistic and comprehensive and thoughtful way. So we not only know what we have now, but where we're headed in the future. And that will allow us to just market our community better for those that live here, and then also those who visit here, that, yeah, you can fly into the airport post-pandemic and rent an EV, and you know that you're safe to come up to Estes Park because we've got the infrastructure here waiting for you. So that's a really exciting opportunity as part of this readiness plan that we will be wrapping up in October, and looking forward to the future. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up with my last slide. I have a fun video to show you all. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, I hope that you'll enjoy this video too.
Great. Let's see if this works. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Here we go.
Invention I want you to see. It looks something like this.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Awesome video. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I love that you mentioned too, how quiet they are. Like, I think that's so, especially when it comes to, community like transportation, it makes a big difference. People can chat without having to worry about the loud engine.
Yeah, it's true. And actually, we had our transit drivers practice all last summer, ringing the bell, the fun trolley bell, every time they started off on their journey, because the new vehicle is so quiet. We wanted to make sure that pedestrians knew that we were coming. So it is fun. Every time the vehicle starts, you hear the ding ding. And it's very charming.
That's great. All right, y'all. Well, last but not least, we have Ryland here with Aspen Snowmass.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Well, thanks to all my fellow panelists and everyone on the call. I am Ryland French, Energy Manager for Aspen Snowmass. Today I'll be speaking about our success in our hotels and also some lessons learned. Usually I spend a lot of my time in our buildings, but I also get to work on our EV charging programs. And today I am the closing speaker, so I promise to have lots of photos, and I'm going to keep it to around 10 minutes. Next slide, please. All right, so a little bit about my experience with the Scenic Byways. My first immersive experience was this photo. This is my wife. We biked over the course of 3 days the Unaweep-Tabaloch Scenic Byway, at least a section of it between Grand Junction and Natarita, which was stunning, as you can see in the photo. And then this late spring, as things started to open up a little bit, we wanted to get out of town. I had this magazine on my coffee table and saw on the bottom right there, Scenic Byways, which was something, I really just had that one experience with. So I thumbed through and saw that Aspen is really a jumping off point, or at least in a day trip distance to 3 scenic byways. So that spurred us to take what was quite literally the scenic route. Next slide, please, Drea. Which was, we wanted to get to Grand Junction to do some cycling, and we took a portion of the West Elk Loop to then connect to the Grand Mesa Scenic Byway, both of which were gorgeous. And I can say I wouldn't have known to take that without the program. And then this map on the bottom left corner of the slide was actually very similar to the route that we took, but this was from a blog that I found recently from an organization called Clear, which I'll speak about momentarily, and a 340-mile trip that an EV driver on their staff took, charging at the destinations marked on that map. So even today in these rural byways, we have infrastructure available. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then again, Aspen is one of the jumping off or destination points on the top of the Rockies. So that's another one that I have driven a lot of and is certainly gorgeous. Next slide, please. Thank you. So a little bit more about Aspen and Aspen Snowmass. We are a values-driven company. We create premium, sustainable, and transformative experiences in recreation, culture, and nature. We do that through our 4 ski mountains in the winter. We have summer on-mountain restaurants and also a bike park and adventure camps. And we are very active drivers on the environmental movement, kind of on larger scales, anywhere from working with our regional utility to lobbying at the state and federal levels, and active in the business community to encourage others and our patrons to do the same. And to kind of have the credibility to take those very active stances, it's important that we are keeping our own house in order, and that's where EVs and EV charging is an example of that. Next slide, please. So our hotels, we have 3 in the Aspen Snowmass area. We have Limelight Snowmass and Limelight Aspen. Those are both casual luxury hotels. We have currently 5 level 2 charging cords at Limelight Snowmass, 7 at Limelight Aspen, and then we have the Little Nell Hotel, which is a 5-star, 5-diamond ski in, ski out hotel at the base of Aspen Mountain, and we have 4 level 2 charging cords there. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I think something that makes me good at my job is connecting the dots between people, projects, and resources. And I know for some hotels, $10,000 to add 5 level 2 cords can be a big ask in terms of funding, and also kind of feel like a big lift in terms of the technical side of it. So I would think that there's probably a lot of resources, a lot of which we've already heard about today, and I'll speak about others that can help with that. So my first foray into EV charging was when I was with the city of Aspen several years ago, and worked with Tesla's destination program to provide free Tesla and universal charging level 2 stations to a handful of hotels in town. Both the city of Aspen and now Aspen Snowmass that I'm with have taken advantage of the Colorado Energy Office Charge Ahead grants. Our regional utility, Holy Cross Energy, is very progressive on a number of fronts. For example, they are slated to be powered by 70% or more renewables by next year, which makes switching to EVs that much more impactful on the greenhouse gas scale. And Holy Cross also has programs for businesses and residents to provide incentives, technical assistance, and in some cases even free charging stations and installs. I've also worked with our local branch of Energy Smart Colorado, which is called CORE, and the city of Aspen. They both provide rebate programs as well. We also have a very strong partnership with Audi, the vehicle brand, which I'll speak to more soon. And with adding 12 more level 2 cords at those 3 hotels last year, Audi partnered with us for that. And then finally, CLEAR is an organization that staffs our regional Recharge Colorado coach, which has been very helpful for the stations we've put in so far and the ones we want to do in the future. And I would say really all of these organizations I've spoke to have partnered on events, ride and drive events, group buys, et cetera, to push the vehicle side of the electric vehicle industry here locally. Next slide, please. Thank you. So again, a little bit more on Audi, which I think is important to talk about because, Aspen does have a clientele, both in our guests and even a lot of our local patrons that would normally be driving luxury SUVs. And now Audi has come out a couple years ago with their e-tron, and we have 1 or more e-trons in each of our hotels for our guests and staff to use and get those experiences. We partner with them on ride and drive events. Our CEO and our senior VP of sustainability drive e-trons. So we're getting these vehicles out there and in many cases getting people in the seats of them and pushing that adoption, which in terms of both local and larger scale emissions, getting someone out of a gas-powered luxury SUV that might get 23 miles per gallon and getting them into an EV can have a larger impact than someone switching from a Subaru Outback at 33 mpg or a Prius at 53. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here in Aspen Snowmass, as you can see from this map, we do have currently a strong EV charging network of both level 2 and level 3 stations, which makes us, again, a good jumping off point for all kinds of recreation, Scenic Byways being just one. And then Laura Armstrong, a colleague of mine at the city of Aspen, did a case study from July of 2019. And of the 4,200 charging sessions on their public charging stations, which that number alone kind of blows me away just over the course of 1 month, but 40% of those charging sessions were by vehicles that were not from our region. So those are out-of-towners coming here with EVs and using these stations. Ready? Yeah, thank you. So talking about what has gone well in our hotels that I think is valuable information. So I spoke to one of our reservation managers for the hotels and was happy to hear that the agents are aware of the fact that we have EV charging infrastructure in each of these hotels. They say it is rare, but it does happen that they have people interested in making reservations and they call ahead to confirm in advance that we have stations for them. At the Little Knoll Hotel, I'll share just quickly some anecdotal experience that I think is valuable to share. At the Little Knoll Hotel, and really all of them, we see a lot more drive-in guests in the summer, and that translates to more use of our EV charging stations in the summer. We have a good number of stations there with 4 that we are rare to run out. We do get a lot of fly-in guests that then rent cars for the entirety of their stay. So I think as the rental car industry progresses with EVs, we'll be positioned to serve them. And most of our EV guests are from within the state of Colorado. At the Limelight Snowmass, looking over the winter months, I can say there are both periods where we get use on the stations every day, several days in a row, and then there's also periods where we might go a week or even more without one of the stations being used. But I have gotten feedback that having the stations has been a difference maker for some people staying there versus not. And a lot of the users are Teslas. We also have the 2 e-trons there. And overall, we do get a good number of guests using them. Again, a lot more road trippers in the summer. Then at the Limelight Aspen property, we have a good level. We have a good amount there with 7. There's kind of always one available, but usually one in use. We have probably 10% of guests, driving guests, our EV guests was the anecdotal feedback that I got, which is a lot and great to hear. And probably 50% of the guests in summer are driving in, mostly from Colorado. And some of those guests do ask our guest services and valet staff for recommendations for road trips. So being able to point them to day trips on Scenic Byways and have those guests confident that this infrastructure is important. Some lessons, kind of some positive lessons that we've learned. We've taken the stance so far that we're not going to collect fees from our hotel guests and other locations for the charging. We will charge them the regular parking fee if there is one. And so far we've been happy with that. We haven't regretted it. A lot of our infrastructure in the hotels, we have intentionally chosen the lower priced options that do not have the fee collection capabilities. And that has gone well. And what I have seen from the data that we can collect on our stations and others is the charging sessions might cost 25 cents up to maybe $2.50 in electricity. So at least at the scale we're at now, we don't feel like we're losing money that we wish we could recoup without collecting a fee. And with these stations in the hotels, we haven't had many issues with them. It hasn't been a big maintenance or troubleshooting requirement for our staff. But there have been some other kind of lessons learned the hard way along the way, which I'll share in this next slide. So a few of these, I think first and foremost, be very thorough in selecting the contractor that you work with for installing these stations, because if there is an issue that you have, it's really critical to be able to get them to come back and help you, which we have been able to do with our contractors. Some specific examples, which maybe will help you not go through the same. At the Limelight Snowmass property, it's kind of it's a shared, very large parking garage, and we actually accidentally installed the stations on a panel that was not tied to our meter. So then the property management company realized that, got in touch with us. We had to bring our contractor back out to put sub meters on there, so then we can compensate the other company. Another example there at Limelight Snowmass is we installed stations on 40 amp breakers that were supposed to be 50 per the manufacturer. It wasn't causing issues, but it could in the future, and luckily we realized that and had to have it fixed. In the 12 additional cords that we installed last year, I elected to kind of cut the station cost in half by installing residential models rather than the commercial models. And it did save a lot of money, but they still did have Wi-Fi and data capabilities, and I wanted that. And I ended up kicking myself because with the residential style chargers, I had to spend a ton of time setting up those Wi-Fi networks. So in the future, I think I'll go with kind of the in-between model, which is meant for commercial applications, but still is not as high of a price point as others can be. And then final lesson is at one of our office locations, we installed a dual cord station, level 2, and we got by for about 2 years before we started getting very consistent use on both cords at the same time. And then we started tripping breakers, and our on-staff electrician realized that the panels and breakers weren't sized for constant draw level of both of those cords at once. So we had to correct that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what's next for us? We're healthy in our hotel fleet now for charging. So we're kind of turning our vision to other places that our guests need charging, and our staff as well. And my vision, hopefully with help from Charge Ahead grant, which I've applied for, is to really do a turnkey project, which I think could be a good model for others on this call, and in Colorado to use, to find the right vendor that can then subcontract to kind of deliver a full product and package. So the aspects of that will be design, procurement, permitting. While I'm installing stations, we're also going to make sure that we have panel capacity and power capacity and running the conduit. So in the future, as demand for the charging increases, we can pop in a station for maybe a quarter of the cost as this initial project. Other parts of the turnkey will be excavation, installation, utility and interconnect, startup and commissioning, networking, and help with the incentive paperwork and reporting and putting together maintenance plans. So that, it seems like a lot. That's kind of the cradle to grave experience with EV charging. So at a minimum, I recommend others are aware of all that and plan for it. And if you can go so far to kind of work with the right vendor from the start on that, I anticipate it will pay dividends for us down the road. And that's all from me today. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to questions. And thanks again to all the other panelists.
Thank you. Yeah, Ryland, we have one question from, excuse me, RJ. Is there a risk that residential charger warranty is void for commercial use?
Yes, it's not just a risk, it's a fact. So that's a very good question. It was something that we were aware of, and it was worth it for us just to save on the cost. But again, next time I'm not going to do that for the other reasons I shared.
Yeah, great, thank you. Lenore, maybe this is a question that you can field. Can you please tell us what the process is to apply to be on the Scenic Byway Commission?
So the commission is represented by 15 different actual positions. So these include a representative, like Cheryl's on this call, from the Eastern Byways. We have a representative that serves the Western Byways. And then we have a representative from various agencies, such as Andrew's on the call from the Colorado Tourism Office. So that's who he represents. We have DOLA, U.S. Forest Service, the BLM. So actually a lot of our positions, actually the majority, are slotted for specific agencies that serve on this 15-member commission. Hopefully that's what they were asking. But there is information on the Colorado Boards and Commission website about commissions, because there's a lot of commissions in Colorado. And then also on our website at CDOT, under the byways, under the very end, you will look on the left-hand corner, there is a commission web page that talks about the 4 meetings a year, and you can look at the notes and what they discuss. Those meetings are always open to the public, so people can join and listen in or attend them as the public is allowed to. So hopefully that's what they wanted.
Yes, thank you. And then we have another question regarding the placement of charging stations along corridors. And it asks, is the 50-mile requirement less than or equal to 50 miles?
And yes, that's correct. So it has to be at minimum 50 miles apart. So every 50 miles there has to be a charging station. Of course, if there is a charging station less than that, that's great, but not over that. And again, it's just to accommodate those vehicles that have a lower range. So the 50 miles is a good kind of standing point for that.
Cool. And then we have kind of a general question that maybe a couple of you can speak on. How far along is the on-site powered DCFC / solar charging station development? So how far are we in solar powered DCFC charging stations?
I would kind of go off of what Addison was speaking on. I think the main thing is really getting the energy grid, the energy mix to be more renewable. And then, everything that we're powering from that mix is, cleaner ultimately, because it's not getting fueled by coal or anything like that. But Addison, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I guess just in terms of for fast charging stations, you need a lot of solar panels to output that amount of energy. So that's one restraint. And then there's also the intermittency, obviously, of the solar panels. So actually what the Energy Office this year is developing a pilot for stationary battery storage paired with fast charging stations. And it'll be an open application process, and we're looking to work with utilities. And we're definitely open to instances where there might be on-site solar deployment, and then the battery would be critical for being able to output the amount of high power that you need for a fast charging session, and to also obviously smooth out the intermittency of the solar generation. So it's kind of a complicated question, but it's definitely being explored where it's feasible and practical.
Awesome, that's very exciting. So Chris Bilby says that we have 7 DCFC in our service territory, and our average refuel time is 40 minutes at fast charging stations. Maybe you can all speak to whether that's, maybe for people who aren't as familiar with the EVSE infrastructure, is that pretty standard? Is that slower or faster? And what can people take away from that information?
I'll just say I think that's good information to have, and as we can partner with our regional utilities, they can be a great source of data like that to kind of verify the reference numbers that we have without a ton of data to back it up. So that's great to hear. I think 43 minutes is around what we would be expecting.
I missed the beginning part of the question. What was the specific charger that was from?
The question says we have 7 DCFC in our service territory, and our average refuel time is 40 minutes at the fast charging stations.
This is from Chris Bilby?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. The fast charging landscape is complex. It's a lot more complicated to talk about than just putting gas in your car. So it's not just about the speed of the station, but the power level of the station, but also the power that the vehicle can accept. So right now, the fastest charging non-Tesla vehicles by a pretty wide margin are the e-trons. So they're gonna bring your average charging time down. And then if you've got a lot of older Nissan Leafs charging, they're gonna charge very slowly, so they would bring the average up. So as the market develops, I would expect that average to come down considerably. I think that, I've been a BEV or an EV driver for 2 years now, and I think my average time is probably closer to 20 minutes at a charger, but it just depends on the use case and how much charge you actually need. So it's kind of a complicated question, but I'm happy to discuss it with anyone offline if they have more questions.
Yeah, that's great information. Christy Crosser also commented that even if it is 40 minutes, that allows people to use amenities like shopping and eating, and so that's kind of a callback to the earlier concern. So another good thing to keep in mind. Let's see. So another question for Lenore. John Clark says he was involved in the San Juan Skyway update discussions before COVID, and he's wondering if there's any status updates for that process currently.
So Heidi Pankow, who is leading that, is going to be scheduling the next steps here any day. She's in the process of moving, so that's delayed that a little bit, but don't worry. She's on board. If you need her email, please feel free to email me and I'll connect you. You probably have her information, but like I said, she's moving right now and will be ready to be on board, not only with that byway. She's our Western Byways commissioner for the whole Western Slope. So she'll connect not only San Juan Skyway, she'll be connecting with all the way over to Dinosaur Diamond and Flat Tops. Also working on these projects here with the EV charging along the northern Clean Cities area. So
that's great. Those are all really exciting projects. It's a beautiful area. It's going to be exciting for people to access that with more alternative fuels.
Yes.
We have a couple in the chat too here, Drea. Chris wants to know, Ryland, didn't you receive the first all-electric snowmobile?
That's right. We received it. What normally would leave us with at least a month or more of the skiing season left, but this year it did not. But we have a really savvy lift and vehicle maintenance director who took that home and really kind of, I think, put it through the motions. And what I've heard is it's looking good and working well. So we'll have a lot more to report once we're into next ski season a little bit. But that's exciting, and it harkens back to the idea of make the green the grid and electrify everything. Cars being one, but also anything from trolleys to snowmobiles to buildings.
Yeah, that would really change the game for backcountry skiers. I know that would be pretty cool.
Yes, yeah, and it's a lot less noisy.
Absolutely. And then there's another one here. How do we watch the recording? Well, I will make sure to send this out to everyone who's joined here. And you can also view the recording. We're going to post it to our YouTube and have the link on our website for this event. So look for it there at Northern Colorado Clean Cities website. But yeah, if there's nothing else, I just want to thank you all again for being a part of this discussion. I know I've had a lot of fun today and learned a lot. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Also, a quick note, we'll probably be posting the either a link to the recording or the recording itself on Facebook and Instagram, and it'll probably be attached to our newsletter also. So tune into those platforms as well for all the information.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Drea, and thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
And Drea, if you're still on, someone asked which Facebook page.